Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us, especially today. The topic we're going to talk about is caring for our aging parents. And with us is Robert Gustafus with John Hancock Investments. Robert has been with John Hancock for over 16 years now and is the vice president. What he does is such an important job. He covers the California and Northern Nevada area, helping advisors like myself and practices that want to do the best for their clients. And so he advises advisors on practice management as well as investment portfolio construction, as well as help us with the education piece and sharing with our clients about very important financial planning topics like the one we're going to talk about today. So, with caring for our parents, as advisors, we often talk about the numbers aspect of it, like how much it costs, how much to set aside, how to fund it. And so, for example, the out of pocket expenses for family caregivers average here in the US about $7,300 a year. And so, for just on various caregiving activities, and that is about 26% of income for the national median here in the US. So, can you imagine spending about almost a third of your income taking care of aging family members? And so, another interesting statistic is that, as far as out of pocket as well, is that caregivers can spend an average of about $275 a month on additional out of pocket expenses on just prescription and medical supply. So, what we're now going to touch on is the uh, emotional and other planning considerations when you find yourself either in the thick of this or you can see it in the horizon. So, um, we'd like to introduce you to Robert Gustafus.
Hey, thanks for that, Kim. Really interesting stats there too. Um, and obviously, just having someone help you and care in the home um, can often and quickly not even often be enough, right? You might need even more care, which then the cost starts to kind of creep up even more so. But thanks for having me here. As Kim said, divisional vice president for John Hancock, Northern California, and Reno in Northern Nevada. And I always like to start this conversation off with a story since when it comes to caring for aging parents, my family and I have had a lot of personal experience in this area. And so my mother uh, was an example. I've got most of my grandparents were examples as well when it comes to caring for aging parents. And so you're going to hear little stories that I weave throughout, but I'll start with, it's really important that we communicate really well when it comes to this situation. When someone's starting to lose control of a situation and you can see it, it doesn't mean that they can. And so we're going to give you some language that you can use as well throughout the presentation. So I'll go ahead and get sharing my screen now. We're all thumbs up on the visual there. Okay, great. So we're going to talk about caring for an aging parent. And I'm going to give you some tips and tools and things that you should be able to take and use as a framework to actually help the situation that's already a difficult situation. Let's make it as easy as we can for our aging parents and making this transition. Whether it's an aging parent of yours or you're an in-law or however that looks in maybe your life. But we're going to talk about specific situation here too, and I'll weave in the stories with my mother and some of the other situations that I've gone through, and some things that I wish I did a little different. So uh, we got Janice Davis here. She's 48. Um, Her mother is alone because her father passed away, and her mother was the caregiver for dad. So it really took a toll. And Janice and her husband both work raising three teenage kids. Her mom is now active, has rebuilt a vibrant social life, and is in fairly good health. Janice is concerned about the future as the only adult child that's nearby. And Janice has no real knowledge of how mom's money worked. They didn't really have that conversation. And she needs to get in front of this. And the trick to everything, we know the questions to ask sometimes, like I need to know this, this, and this. It's not the that you don't know these things sometimes. It's actually how, right? We're all animals at the end of the day. I can say hello, I can say hello, and those are two different ways, and it's two different reactions. If we can, say things in certain ways and help ourselves with good tone, we can help in these situations. My mother was 60 years old. She had battling cancer, and I didn't even put two and two together that it's not just aging and gracefully aging necessarily. Sometimes it's the other things too. And so what we're going to start with here is looking at a plan. Now, a structure I like to use, of course, we've got really good questions on the screen that you can see, like where will they live? How will they spend their time? What will your social life look like? But if you're putting together a structure on how you're actually going to execute this, we always want to think about the three I's, right? When we have a challenge, we can either ignore the challenge, it's the first I, which is what a lot of times, folks will do, especially with someone who's aging. They're going, okay, I may have been very, very forgetful recently, or I'm maybe not able to bathe myself or do some things, or I'm having a hard time getting up out of bed. Human nature is, I got this, and I'm going to ignore that that's an issue. I'm just going to keep moving on. Well, of course, it doesn't necessarily and generally get better. So the first I is we can ignore the issue. The second I we can do is we can incorporate it. It's okay. Mom is having a hard time getting out of bed. Mom is having a hard time doing these other things. Maybe we start and assisting her and getting her used to assistance early and having someone come in a little bit. So I know Kim shared a stat earlier of, I did the math in my head, somewhere around $600 to $700 a month for someone to do care. Maybe we start with $100, $200, and we get them used to it. And now it's easy. Hey, you know what? They're gonna come in, they're gonna do this and make life a little easier. And then it introduces the idea. But those are some ideas. The last I is, of course, you can insure. And this is where you look at other ways, maybe even offsetting it and going, we might need to get a policy of some sort that helps with these kinds of things, just depending on the situation. But the questions that are on the screen are really good to start planning. But the planning part, we know if you don't plan, you plan to fail, right? There's a great quote that's out there about that. But how do I bring this topic up? We got to have words to use and words to lose. Um, and this is a really good one. If you want these slides, by the way, I'm 100% positive that they're available to you. I know Kim, Ariel can send them out to you, but I want to read this one verbatim because I think it's important to just hear out loud. Mom, I or we, if you're doing it as a couple or as a group or as a family, we want to talk to you about your future and what your wishes are. I saw how challenged you were at times when you're caring for your dad or for caring for dad, and yet you did it with so much love. What that statement is doing is just setting up um, some linking between the experience of the person and what you're getting ready to take them through, what you're going to say, so that they don't get offended, right? You can kind of see the look on mom's face like, long-term care or caring, it sounds like an older thing. And no one likes to be called old. I've not yet found anybody, unless they're like 98 and they're like, okay, I'm old. They'll raise their hand and say, and you can call me old. Okay. But nobody wants to be called. So, hey, I saw that you were caring for dad. Um, we want to make sure that we understand what your plans are. You'll notice there's a lot of you and your in here, trying their best not to say a lot of the I's, right? It's not about you, it's about them. And so we want to make sure we understand your plans so that we can be the same loving support for you that you were for him. And maybe you're dealing with someone who maybe is single. There's other examples of love and caring. You don't have to use that one, right? It's important that we make plans so that you can live your life the way you want. Again, all this you is focusing on them. And we want that peace of mind. So here's what we want. We want the peace of mind of knowing that we have planned and knowing how to carry out your wishes. All that we want is for you to get what you want. And we think by planning ahead, we can do that. So what are some of the things that we can do here? What are some of the options that are out there? So the physical realities of things are, senior housing and care options, we have moving with the family. So going back to the I's, right? We can ignore an issue, we can incorporate the issue, or we can insure against the issue and throw that risk to an insurance company or some other way. Senior housing and care options, some people, most people want to live in their home. That's why they live there. They like that house. They want to age in place. If that's the choice, someone like Kim and the team can help kind of figure out if you're going to modify the house or do it. It's just going to cost money. Maybe you're fortunate enough to have space on your land where you can put a place. Maybe you're fortunate, maybe you're not. Maybe that's just not an option and they need to go somewhere else. That's a lot of times too, and especially in specific cultures, moving in. I know that here at my house, we have all had in my family uh, our elders living with us at some point or another. It's what we decided what was going to work for us and what we felt like we could handle with how we're set up. It's not for everybody, but if you don't decide this up front, it will decide for you because you will have no choice left once you don't take the bull by the horns and have these harder conversations up front. So here are the options, right? You got 55 plus community. These are great opportunities if you're able to afford obviously buying the house or selling the house where mom and dad are, if that's a part of the equation, or they have assets of some sort where they can afford a home there. These communities are protected. They've got folks that are in the same age. They've got lots of activities. There's one actually not too far from my house that I actually frequent for a little 9-hole golf, and I'm always playing with these folks. And they always seem so really really happy and enjoying their latter years. However, you're on your own. These are not designed to have a lot of help. They just are designed necessary to have a social experience around you of people in your same era and generation that are talking about the same things and went through a lot of the same situations in life. And then you move on over to an assisted living. So this is like 55 plus community, plus we have people there to help. Um, you don't have a skilled nurse necessarily, not all places, but you'll have these. They'll have food, nutritions, which you would not have in 55 plus community, be on your own, and they provide some other structural things to help out. Sometimes they have skilled nursing, sometimes they don't, but you have uh, continuing care, CCRCs. I like to think of these as kind of the you got to have the money option, right? This is a place where you're getting in. It's usually a larger dollar amount, but what happens is, just like the name says, continuing care. You can go in healthy as a clam and have fun, almost in the 55 plus. As you are getting older and have needs, they have everything there to make a modification, or we need nursing care, we need memory care, you need any of these extra benefits. It's already paid for and done. You're going to be here. This is your final place. And I hope you want to make sure you really like that place because that's where you're going to be. It's a pretty big investment. And the last place, of course, I think we all know skilled nursing homes. I think we all know what that's all about. I had someone tell me, "What you mean the place with the sticky floors, right?" And sure, we'll call it that. Uh, not the most fun place to be, but it's where when you have some pretty serious, you know, care needs, and usually more end of life or type stuff you'll find in the skilled nursing home. So, how much is all this stuff going to cost? And what are some other options? Right? There's a place for moms, a free service you can provide access to by phone. I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard great things about Place for Mom. I've heard some things for people like I don't like how they do certain things, but these are resources, right? You may or may not like them, but they're available. Again, when you get to choose your option, when you're planning, it's so much nicer because you actually have a choice. And it's most importantly, it's nice for, in this case, we have the mom and the daughter in this case. It's really nice for mom because she has choices. And when you get to make those choices, guess what? Acting on those choices becomes more of a thing. Nothing stinks more than we didn't make any choices. We have one or two, both of them mom hates, and now we're fighting. And now the family's fighting. And now it fractures relationships. And now, as far as legacy goes, I've yet to hear too many folks say, I don't care what happens with my family when I'm gone. I just don't hear it very often.
Mm-mm.
So you do care. You don't want your siblings tearing each other over things and all that. But we're going to jump to the Genworth cost of care because I just think it's one of the best ways to get a general gist of how some of these things I just showed you cost. Um, so you guys can see that on the screen, right? The map and everything I have up. Good.
Yes.
So what's neat, you can go to genworth.com, aging and you, and then you go to cost of care, which is right here. And you click on this and it takes you to this application, like online application. And you can kind of play around with different kinds of services. And if you're not sure what the kind of service is, you can hit this I, and it'll just tell you what you get with these kinds of services. And typically, the more you pay, the more services you're going to get. But you would look at that as a needs and a lifestyle basis. And so I just think it's interesting and neat. And what it does is allows you to say, well, I don't need this service now. Maybe I need it in 2 years. It'll tell you in a few years, let's say 5 years from now, what the estimated cost probably will be. And again, this is something where, as a family, you can now again make decisions on these types of things. Okay, and you can even click on here and it'll tell you how many hours a week you might need, and you can reassess these numbers. So let's say 44 hours, which is pretty much a full-time job there for somebody. Hey, I don't need that. I just need 20 hours. I need half that. I'll help out in other ways. So now I'll look at the cost, they adjust.
Yeah.
Again, this is the customization of planning versus letting it hit you in the face and going, you got one option, this is the option, and that's all you get.
Yeah. So for fun, Robert, can you put in Chico, California?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. Chico,
There we
there
are.
you go. Look at that. Zooms in, puts it right on Chico. We scroll down. Let me see what the hours are here. This is still half the amount of hours. So if you wanted a 44-hour full-time week, here we are.
There we go.
Here we
That is
are.
the cost for Chico.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll jump on back over here to the next step of the conversation. Mom, in our last conversation, right, this is a follow-up. Now, mom doesn't look as like tense this time. Before she was like, oh, now she's like, she's got her hand on the shoulder. She's kind of calming her down. Quick aside, because you guys know me, I have tons of stories. I used to have night terrors when I was a kid. And one of the things my mom does, which now my wife does, which now that I'm saying it, is if I'm like feeling like I'm having like a nightmare, which I don't do as much anymore, she actually would put her hand on my shoulder and rub like this. And even when I'm sleeping, it calms people down. That touch, although it looks like a little thing, she's holding her hand and touch. It's just a loving, caring thing, and it brings the temperature of the conversation down without,
Mm.
even though this is a tensious thing. We're talking about end of life care. We're talking about all these things that are not so warm and fuzzy. Doing that really takes the temperature down. Hey, in our last conversation, we talked about your hopes and wishes for like to live as you age. The next step is to do our research so that we're prepared. Step one, broach the conversation. Use the verbiage if you need to. Step two, let her know what the next steps are. You got to follow up. Follow up on this builds more and more trust that you are the one that's going to help get mom get through this. More than likely, if your mom's anything like my mom, my mom ran a hospital, but man, planning for her own care, it's just not something she wanted to do. Nobody wants to do this, man. You got to do it. And so the next step is your research and be prepared. We'd love for us to make that a project that we can work on together. Alternatively, I can do the research and present to you with available services and options in the area for you to consider. This is like, do you want to be involved or do you not want to be involved? This is all about us being able to support you and do that in a way that would make you feel comfortable. Would you like to work on this together? Or would you want me to just do it for you and come back? Now, my mom, again, she ran a bunch of hospitals for Kaiser Permanente, and she was like, "You do it." Not like she couldn't. She knew how. She worked in the hospital. She knows all about this care. She's like, she was sick, and she's like, "I don't have the energy to trust you. I want you to do it. Thanks for letting me know." That's what you do. So after our last conversation, I did some research. Here's the option. Here are the costs. Lay it out. And this is another thing I would say, working with someone like Kim would help you because Kim can go, yeah, here that we can help with that. Maybe you yourself feel like, yeah, I'll do this, but man, I'm also busy. If you remember, the story in the beginning was this daughter here on the left is in the sandwich generation. She's taking care of the household. She's working a full-time job, and she's supposed to take care of a full-time adult. I mean, that's a lot. Actually, one of those things is enough. You add in something else, it's like it could make you go crazy. Leverage your resources. Reach out to your advisor and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Can you put your head in? Help me, right? And I know Kim would be right there. Even if we never need to take advantage of these services or communities, it will give us a peace of mind to know that we're prepared and that we are doing exactly what you want us to be doing. So I think, by now you've seen that there's lots of options. One of them is family caregiving. It is not for everybody. We have successfully done it in our family, and we have very unsuccessfully done it in our family. As a matter of fact, I'll share a quick story with you. My grandfather had dementia um, and Alzheimer's. He was a Vietnam vet, very strong man, stood tall, liked to iron his clothes every day, kind of person, very like straight edge. And one day he decided to drive from Las Vegas to our house. And when he showed up, and we didn't know he was coming, first off, we knew he was having some mental things and we were talking about it as a family, but we hadn't done anything, hadn't acted. We hadn't talked to him about it even. He, in the middle of the night, decided to come see us. It was a 3-hour drive, no directions. He just drove. And when he showed up, he's like, hey, how you doing? We're like, we didn't know you were coming. And I looked outside of his car. It was all banged up all the way around. He had hit, I don't know how many things along the way and just kept driving. We don't know if he hit people. We have no clue. It was crazy. It was scary. We took him in. We said, you're not going home, Grandpa. You're going to stay here. Of course, I don't know that we handled that situation well because he wasn't happy about that. And actually, about 3 or 4 days later, Grandpa could not stay at our house any longer. It just wasn't working. So, family caregiving is not for the faint of heart. Of course, we had some other, like my grandmother, we had some other situations. So we ended up chatting with him, planning things out, and he actually went into a home where he stayed for 6 years until he passed. And that was the best for him and for the entire family, and it really kept us together. So the majority of caregivers are women. Women do live longer than men. I think we all know that inherently, maybe, but women on average live about 5 years longer. Um, Caregiving. So this is an interesting one. Among caregivers who reported high intensity or demanding care situation, nearly 1 in 4 feel caregiving has made their own health worse. Something we don't realize is hard work to take care of a person. For those of you who've had kids or have children, if you remember that, because my kids are a little older now, and I barely remember when they're like real little babies because it was just so intense, and we had two really close together. It's a lot of work. Now, it's even more intense when it's an adult. It's really, really intense. And so you have to think about your health too. Are you someone who can not only physically but mentally handle those challenges? And if you're not, right, get some support. If the finances aren't working, where getting them outside is not going to it's just not going to work because of their finances, your finances, or a combination, or the families. Make sure that you are investing at least a little bit of time and money and effort into your own strengths, especially up top. Taking control. Okay, so I think we kind of know this now. I've said it a million times. We got to have a plan. The family caregiving thing too. I have seen work really well where siblings rotate.
Mhm.
So you're going to take care of mom for these, and then we're going to rotate over here so that there is some relief, but also mom's getting continuous care from family.
Yeah, I've seen that situation as well, where it was a family of six sisters, and each one took 1 month.
Mm. Oh, that's smart. So you get 2 months a year with mom, huh? Or dad. That's great.
And it worked really well. And mom was happy because it was like a vacation every month to
Love it.
go somewhere else. But each sister had a bedroom for mom.
See, I love that. I love hearing that. And hopefully all of you out there listening to this, that's an incredible strategy. And again, we can splinter off into maybe 100 different ways to do it, especially depending on if you have kids, how many kids you have, all that stuff. But it doesn't have to be one way. It could have been in that situation. I'll throw another splinter in there. What if each child had mom for 1 month of the year instead of two, and mom was in her home base, maybe a care facility for the other 6 months? That's another option. Now they want to do it the way they did it because that's how they planned it. Smart on them. But again, if they had waited to the last second and then maybe their life was filled with other things, or someone moved to Europe, or two kids moved out of country, now we got four. Now there's a lot more stress and pressure, and maybe something breaks in the family, and now there's resentment. Oh, you went to Europe, you had a good time. We were here taking care of mom, and I don't like you anymore because of that. Oh, here we go, right? And we see it all the time.
Hmm.
You really have to think these things through, and coming together as a unit and going through it, you can make a good plan, like Kim was talking about. Now, here's the insure, right? I said you can ignore the problem, which is what most people do, and unfortunately, it hurts them because they end up with no choices. You can incorporate the risk, which is where you're like, I'm going to make a plan. We're going to rotate with the six sisters, or you can insure against the risk. My uncle and aunt have been instrumental in every single care challenge we've had with my mother and both of my grandparents, and the challenges that they had that were very unique to their situations at the end of their lives. Um, that was enough for them to say, we're going to go ahead and buy long-term care insurance now, and because we can afford it, thankfully, and we're going to go ahead and say we're going to be in the best Taj Mahal type place, and none of you kids have to take care of us. We already got it. So they bought insurance. They bought enough insurance to say if the same situation happens to us, um, we want to be here, here, and here. It's all planned out. There's no questions. Their care is taken care of for the rest of their life, and it's funded by an insurance policy. So that's really what that's all about. Of course, you can read the things on the screen because it's gonna, it kind of talks about so many things. Healthcare costs are rising. I think everything, right? That's inflation. McDonald's was $1 menu. Now it's the $5 menu, right? It's just how it is. Funny story on that. Subway used to have a commercial I think a lot of people watching this will remember, and I'll sing it because I have no shame. Um, it's called the $5 Footlong song. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, I do.
$5 foot long. Remember that? Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, you know what it is now? It's $6 6 inch.
Not quite as catchy. That's a mouthful.
$6 6 inch. So you get half the sandwich for about 20% more cost. I mean, that's the statistic, right? Costs are going up. We know that. So locking in and getting insurance that raises up naturally with that, if you can afford it. Um, Even if, and another thing I'd love people just to consider out there when it comes to long-term care insurance, um, the most expensive insurances on the planet are the ones that get used the most.
That's a good point.
That's how it works. So if you're paying 10 cents for an insurance policy, it will probably never pay. It's just how it is. So keep that in mind. All right. Uh, so now that we've talked to mom's in agreement, we're moving on. Now we've done some research, we got things down. These are some other pain points that people don't really look into. Now, of course, when it comes to caring for aging parents, um, we would do not be telling you the right thing if we didn't at least touch on the fact that you need to have these things set up: wills, trusts, executor. So for my mother and her will, there were some contentious things on there that luckily she just snipped them in the bud. It's just me, my brother, and I who are left, and yeah, there was a person on her will that she wanted to make sure didn't get anything. And I was like, why would this person be on here wanting anything anyway? They're not even our family. And I'm not kidding you. Right after she passed away, they called and asked for the thing that my mom wrote right in the will that they were not to have. Very interesting. You want to make sure that these things are listed out. The executor, the person who's going to execute on the estate, and then you have the trustees of the trust. These things are just must-haves. You definitely don't want to go through the probate system. And specifically, I haven't heard anybody yet say, "I don't know, you know what? I don't want my kids to get the money. I'd rather give it to the government or to a lawyer." Like, uh, I'm definitely not going to want. I haven't heard anybody tell me that that's where they want the funds to go. My mother was very giving too, so she had her church on there as well. So those kinds of things need to be prepared. Power of attorney, medical power of attorney. These were some of the difficult choices. I'm going to tell you. You know, um, I share these personal stories, hopefully to help you out. But my mother was close to passing, and we had to make these really hard decisions where it's like, do you want to do this or this? And it's like, I don't want to make that decision at all. Don't make me make that decision because I don't want that on my. Why do I have to make a decision, right? Um, Now, luckily, my mother did fill out her stuff. She had a medical power of attorney, she had all these things, and we did it the right way where we could just look up what mom wanted, and we went with that. Because having these things down are extremely important. So now, right, we went from mom was looking like this to mom looking kind of skeptical with daughter hand on the shoulder, and now
Now
we're
they're
doing
they're
Eskimo
talking.
kisses, right? I think we're good.
We're good.
Jack and I recently updated our estate plan. It made me realize that we need to talk about yours in order for us to help, right? Because now, if you started with the estate plan, let me tell you what would happen. The pictures would have been very different, right? It'd be one of these, right? You're talking to me about that now? Like, come on. Everything is in progress, and kind of leading down this path. We care about you. We care about you. We care about you. We want to make sure, though, too, that the things that you have are going where they want to go when that time comes. Can we go through your plan so that we understand how you have things set up? So, parenting your parents I gotta tell you, that's probably the only time you hear me say that is on this call. I probably wouldn't say that anywhere else because they're not gonna like that term.
Yes.
But getting the plan together, focusing on the future, if you need it, and I believe, especially after COVID, I believe we all need a little more support. Reach out, um, get the legal documents in order. The legal documents themselves are insurance. Insurance to help keep the family together, their insurance on things moving in a smooth and orderly fashion, their insurance to help you feel like I don't have to worry about that part. I can focus on my mom today or my dad or whoever this person is. And then getting your family involved early and often, super important as well. You may even have those family members, which we had lots of, who really just didn't have not that they don't want to help, it's just that they were really far away, they had a lot going on, and they just weren't as involved. We made them involved. We put a big group text together and said, here's what's going on with mom now. It's not that they don't want to. And if anything, if we don't do that, they don't feel involved and they can't get involved. And that also causes a little angst. You
Hmm.
know,
It
they
does.
want to help. Matter of fact, when my mother was going through what she was going through, we did, my cousin who's in Iowa, she's like my sister, knew my mom very well. We all grew up together. Felt so terrible about all of the things that were going on. She's like, I want to help. What can I do from here, from Iowa? Because I can't get there. She's got kids. Again, she's dealing with what she's dealing with. Says, you can help me with all of the funeral stuff. That stuff depresses me and I don't want to deal with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so she's like, done. She made the calls. She set everything up. It was so nice to have that help.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't involve her on all the steps, we sent everybody in the group. She she could have resented that I didn't give her that opportunity to put effort in, right? We got to give people that chance.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about a lot of things today. Totally, I don't expect anybody to remember everything. There are checklists Kim has access to in her team that they can send out if you're interested to help with like a checklist to say, hey, this is a lot of info. And we didn't, and by no means this is exhaustive because there are lots of ways to do this, but this checklist is really, really good to help you. It is on the online as well, but I'd reach out to Kim to get it. And we do have other things, which I know Kim may pull me in on to do other recordings or to chat with you all on other areas that we do focus on when it comes to women. And so with that, each one has its own checklists and things. Appreciate the time. And I'll end where I started. Ultimately, um, there are three eyes when you're looking at any problem, any situation. You can ignore the risk, right, which feels okay for now, but will end up being something you have to deal with later that may shorten your options. You can incorporate the risk, which is you grabbing the bull by the horns and going, okay, we got six sisters, we got one mom. Let's divide the time, right? That's a way to incorporate what's going on and not necessarily and not necessarily go towards an insurance route, or you can insure against the risk. And insure against the risk is where you take that risk and you say, insurance company, I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this now. Um, Make sure we have our wills and trusts and things in order because that's a part of ensuring things go okay as well. I really appreciate the time and thanks for having me on, Kim and Ariella. Is there any other questions or things? Please let her know. I'm sure we can get them answered.
Robert, I so love this discussion and just how you presented these ideas as well. Because to me, what a successful presentation is just where you can provide simple, actionable steps and just simple words to say. And so, for example, when you talked about incorporating some of these steps early on and just in bite-sized pieces, it could be as simple as, let's be okay with just carving out a little bit of money each month for help for mom and dad. And it could be like, let's go ahead and bring in a house cleaner to help to once a week so that you don't feel badly about not being able to do all the different chores you're used to doing. It's okay, and start to embrace the idea that it's okay to bring in help. Some of the other ideas I was thinking about that would be really easy to just start incorporating into your life is those home modifications to get started now, so that at the moment of a health crisis, your house is still accessible to us. Like, let's look at our doorways. Can we get into the house? Would it be easy to just jump on Amazon and find a doorway ramp? Or what about just widening some of the doorways so that is the exterior size so we can get a wheelchair in there? I love that. And then also just having words to say, and I can see my screen has just frozen up, but like words to say, and just switching out things like, instead of I, replace it with you, and replacing me with we. Just those very simple words can be so powerful to encourage collaboration and cooperation. And your slides of the progressive mom face was beautiful because I've seen them all too in those different
So
stages.
true.
So, Robert, again, thank you so much for your time today. This has just been really valuable. Thank
Well,
you.
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you
You
all.
too.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone.